so comfortable with you. I feel like so comfortable with you. I feel like I'll always love you.
WrestleMania is in the books. Was it one for the record books for a good way or a not great way? Plus, we recap all the action from the NBA playoffs, what it was, and the NHL playoffs as Couch Potato Diary starts now, live. Absolutely smooth sailing on a Monday. Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary, presented by Sea of Dead. 25% off sale going on right now. Check out seaofdead403.ca. We got the Cannons hat, get into baseball mode. We got a Stampede Wrestling shirt if you want to get into wrestling mode as we start a new season in the WWE post-WrestleMania. So as always, go check out seaofdead403.ca. Running the stream on a few different places today, so shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Kick. If you in your respective chats could let me know if there are any streaming issues as we go along, that would all be greatly appreciated. So coming up on the show today, we're going to start with just kind of a sober second thought on WrestleMania from over the weekend. We're going to look at Monday Night Raw and preview what is to come for the WWE as we get ready for what is always one of the more entertaining or at least noteworthy Raws of the year, and a look at who we'd like to see called up from NXT as again we start kind of a new year in the WWE here today. Also, we're then going to get into some NBA talk as the playoffs were this weekend, so run through what we saw from every series, and ditto for the NHL. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments or in the chat or wherever you can on these. Always do really appreciate all of that. One more thing, if you want some energy for your streams or whatever, check out swiftenergy.gg. Use that code PKPrimetime for the 25% off. So, now that all of that is out of the way, let's dive right in. WrestleMania 41 over the weekend. Kind of disappointed a lot of people. And the more I've thought about it, the more I'm one of those people. Let's discuss. It was not the grand spectacle that everyone was hoping it would be. I mean, it was a spectacle for sure. It was the grand part that was missing, as WrestleMania 41 is now behind us, and what we have are a couple of interesting things, a couple of things that we are hoping become interesting, and a whole lot of frustration. So that's kind of where I am at, is the frustrating part of it, and almost like kind of apparent, you know, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. That's kind of where we are at, is that I was saying this to my wife last night, is coming out of this, it kind of feels like, here, I'm based in Calgary, shout out Calgary Cannons, Sea of Dead, where, there, all that. There are some years where you get to really stampede it up, right? Like, okay, Calgary Stampede, let's go. Let's lock and load, fire it up, here we go. And then there are some years where, especially in the industry that I'm in, you have to work a whole lot, and so you don't really get to enjoy it. And then you have one of those where you're working a whole lot, or like a Christmas season. If you're working, or if just certain life events make it not really something you can fully enjoy, you kind of come out of it, and then you'll see something that reminds you of that in a couple of weeks. Oh man, I can't wait for... Oh, it's over. We have to wait a full year for that. That's kind of where I'm at with WrestleMania, where it feels like we went through it, we got the build-up, and then it happened, and now a couple weeks from now, I'll see some kind of like a clip or something like, oh man, WrestleMania is going to be, nope, we had it, and it was a little disappointing. That's where I'm at. There were just... You had a run with so much potential and so much, I think, good creative in everything, building up to it. A lot of not great, and we'll talk about that as well. But you had so much potential and so much good creative and so many potentially interesting parts going into this one that it feels like a bit of a dud now that we come out of it, and that's what we get. So don't let me kind of shape how you're thinking. We have on YouTube and on Twitch a poll going on in the chat right now. What do you give WrestleMania? Thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs in the middle? I think I would be thumbs in the middle. I still think there was enough good on this that it wasn't an entire waste of time and just a bad WrestleMania, but I do think that this was not one that you could say the good outweighed the bad enough to say, oh no, this is awesome. We need to do this one for sure. I think the follow-up now is going to be very, very interesting with this because there is a lot of backlash around it and there is a lot of frustration and there's a lot that I think still needs to be answered when you are looking at some of these stories as well. So I think the follow-up to this now is going to be quite interesting to see where they kind of roll with this and what decisions they make. And so look, like going back, night one, you really get saved by an amazing main event. It felt like a lot of the matches, night one for sure, but also, you know, night two as well, there was a lot of matches that felt they could have got to another level, right? Another gear. And I get a lot of what you were looking for was story based, right? And so you get like the big moment with, hey, Jey Uso has done it. And that's kind of what we were looking for. We didn't need this to be a 5-star classic. In fact, given one of the participants in it, we weren't necessarily expecting a 5-star classic, but you still need to give something along those lines, right? And when you have a talent roster as good as this one, and the bar has been raised for what good matches are in 2025, and I know they took a lot of shots at AEW, but one thing you can say about AEW, we can yell and scream all we want about the creative in All Elite Wrestling and all of that. It is it is always delivering on pay-per-view when it comes to big matches, or just on television in general, right? Like you look at a couple of matches that we saw on Dynamite on Wednesday with Mercedes Moné against Athena and the Will Ospreay match, both of those delivered in ways that 90% of the matches at WrestleMania this year didn't even do. So it is one thing to really rely on a lot of the story, but you do still need that in-ring aspect, and I feel like that was kind of lost this year, where a lot of it is, okay, this is about the story of the New Day winning the tag team titles. This is about the story of Jey Uso overcoming and getting to the top of the mountain and becoming the world champion. This is about the story of Tiffany Stratton being able to overcome and pick up a win over Charlotte Flair, but you still need the matches to be good for us to get excited about. Like, we're not... Story is very, very, very important, obviously, but you didn't just get 61,000 people on both nights into Allegiant Stadium on Easter weekend to watch the stories play out. I mean, there is some of that, but you want to see good matches when it is happening too. And so, again, we get on AEW for the creative, and honestly, a lot of the creative gets hit on WrestleMania here too, but you have to have the good matches as well. It all has to kind of tie in, and it just felt like this Mania never really hit that. And I think I was maybe whistling past the graveyard a little bit when it came to that on in the build-up, because like doing a couple of interviews out here in Calgary and stuff like that, you get kind of the thought of okay, or the question, sorry, of okay, what's the match you're looking forward to? And I would be like, oh well, obviously it's, well, wait, what match am I looking forward to? Because you could give the, Cody Rhodes and John Cena. Or you could give the, Seth and Roman and CM Punk. But a lot of times there's like, okay, you got those, but we got this classic one that we are excited about. And you never got that on the undercard. But we get, again, a couple of matches delivering, and one of them that I was excited for does end up delivering. But it still never really clicked in that full way for this one. So again, quite a bit of frustration with all of this. And I mean, you got that in the crowd reaction too. And John Pollock brought this up on Post Wrestling. I do wonder, like, higher ticket prices, more focus on celebrities, you wonder if that does change a little of the reaction. Now, the devil's advocate part of that is when things picked up, there was reactions. You know, that like Jacob Fatu and LA Knight got some big crowd reactions as their match went on. Dominic Mysterio gets a massive crowd reaction when he wins the Intercontinental Championship. The crowd was into yeeting at the beginning of the show. So when there were things to get excited about, they were there. But you do wonder, like, it is a bit of a different crowd now. Also, I do want to say, like, just saying, oh, well, they've priced out the real fans. I think that's nice for those of us who can't afford trips to WrestleMania to say. I think just because you can afford a $400 ticket doesn't automatically make you less of a real fan. I think that's just something nice that we say about ourselves, who can't necessarily get there for some of these now, given the prices and everything like that. So that was just something I thought of with this whole thing. But I do still say, again, the reason I'm not full thumbs down like we have going on in the polls right now, the reason that I am not full blown thumbs down is there were still some big moments on this one, and there were still some great matches on this card. The Seth thing felt like a major deal, and it gets the reaction all over social media all weekend, right? With Paul Heyman, whatever this was, really drives that home. Now, look, I have never fully done that low blow thing to anyone before. I've never also had it done to me. So, I would imagine if you are getting hit in that way, if the guy is then kind of giving you like a little fishtail thing, that probably sucks as well. But it was a little bit funny that was happening. But this still feels like a major moment and still feels like something that you can really build up and really kind of get behind, and could be something that kind of sets up the rest of the year. Like, that felt like a major thing. The Io Sky and the women's championship match, that was, again, right now, that is my favorite match of the year. And again, I cannot think rationally about our genius of the Sky, Io Sky, but I still loved that match. I think that there's a lot of different ways you can go now coming out of the women's title picture with Asuka and with Bianca and with Rhea Ripley as well. So you get a couple of like good payoffs. Again, the Intercontinental title match was a lot of fun. It's funny that there was, especially from behind this microphone too, there was some bitching and moaning about multi-person matches, and oh man, they're just loading these up with all and just trying to sneak everyone onto these cards. And then when you looked at it, it wasn't actually that much that they were doing that on, but it was those matches that delivered in the biggest way. We're talking about the Fatal 4-Way, the Triple Threat, and the other Triple Threat match. So there was a lot of different ways that those matches delivered in ways that the singles matches just never really did. But then ultimately, again, you're finishing your show with this big angle that has been built up for a while now, and if you're going to do something huge, like John Cena is turning heel, and now John Cena is winning the title at WrestleMania, this did not feel like the creative or the match or anything that met that moment. And now look, like, John is, at this point, rather limited in what he could do. And while I was never as big of a Cena hater as most, we aren't starting with the least limited skill set to begin with anyway, right? Like, no one was tuning into John Cena for the 5-star matches or anything like that, right? But this one was even more basic than that. And even still, you can still have a wild match without doing 1,000 flips and everything. They have proven that time and time again. But it kind of felt like if this was what you were going to do, if it was going to be this heel turn to turn everyone against John Cena, but he still overcomes, then that match has to be absolutely incredible for it to kind of live up to that. Because otherwise now, like, the reaction, if John Cena would have just come out and we just had good guy John Cena against good guy Cody Rhodes for the undisputed, although kind of disputed because someone else won a world title earlier in the night, but it's their belt, they can call it what they want, for the undisputed WWE Championship, I feel like the reaction to Cena winning would have been significantly bigger if it was just good guy versus good guy than that we got, where we had to put Travis Scott in the main event, and we had to put The Rock involved in this in some way, shape, or form. And you're seeing a lot of the stuff where people are now suggesting, like, Rock is just like, oh yeah, I can come to that show, and they have to shoehorn him in as some kind of part of the creative, and then when he can't stick around the whole time, well, then you have to pivot and do something else. And that may be true, and that, I would imagine, from a creative standpoint, would be frustrating as all hell. I do still think if you wanted to do, Rock comes down, gives the little meh thing to John Cena, and then Cena ends up turning heel, there is still more you could have done referencing it, even a little bit, and mentioning it on your television. And okay, well, why did you sell your soul to that guy in particular? Why? Like, we get it. You're very upset that we booed Cena Sucks for a long time, and still bought the merch and still did all of those things. You're really, really mad about that. But why with The Rock, and why now? You just won the Elimination Chamber match. Like, what's the point in all of this? And so even if The Rock wasn't going to be involved, there was still a way that I think you could have tied it all together that made it make more sense and didn't make it that bleh that we got on Sunday night. So it really did feel like the creative direction, you want to do something new, and I respect that entirely. And you're kind of running out of time to do that. So this would be the time to do it. but it just felt like it takes away from what is supposed to be a very major moment in like John Cena's career, in WWE history, and in pro wrestling history, the way that you have built this up. So it was just a bit of a downer at the end of this whole thing. And it is frustrating because you look back and like just putting thumbnails together and everything like that, you see the picture of Cena just dead ass staring. And the pictures of Rock, Cena, and Travis Scott, and you go back to that time and you are thinking, oh my God, this is going to be insane. This is going to be the jumpstart that we needed for the road to WrestleMania, and this is going to be great. And now you're looking back on it and it's more of a, what could have been? You know, it is like a lot of stuff in the worst parts of Vince creative, where like you have, man, it is AJ Styles against Samoa Joe. What could have been with all that, huh? Like, there's a lot of stories. And even the one that I was kind of going back to this weekend, because it was brought up a lot, where CM Punk is talking about, I brought the Shield in to this wrestling industry and I can take them out. And if you go back and remember at the time, that was heavily implied, but they never just straight said it. Right? Like, it was always, well, these guys are banned from ringside and they are kind of getting involved in CM Punk matches, but then eventually we kind of turn on CM Punk. And it was always like they were trying to be kind of half pregnant with that whole thing. And so there was a way where you could do that, where CM Punk is starting basically his NWO with the Shield, and they are just running through everyone. There is a way that you can do that, and it's awesome, but they didn't do that. And so you're looking back on it, and you can kind of twist it and make it seem like this was a good thing. And overall, like, it was entertaining. It was more entertaining than a whole lot of the other stuff they had at the time, but it still leaves a bit of a incomplete feeling. And that's what I have with this, where it's like, man, like, all of that, and this is what we get at the end. It's just a bit of a bummer with all of this. And so now there is a lot of pressure, and now there's a lot of momentum that needs to be built back up, because a lot of people going into this had, again, it was a very Vince era mindset, where you were looking and saying, all right, we didn't get the build we wanted. The creative wasn't fantastic, but this is WrestleMania, man. We're going to get some stuff that's going to be great, and we're going to get some stuff that we're going to be talking about, and the matches are going to be fire, and it's still going to be fun, and we're still looking forward to it because of the talent on the card. And even that part didn't really deliver in the way that we wanted it to, so it was all just very, very disappointing. Deeds, subscriber on Twitch, which is, again, always very much appreciated, Deeds. Thank you. In the chat over on Twitch, saying, Roman said, without the wise man, there is no tribal chief. Does this set up a character shift for Roman Reigns? I do wonder about that, right? Because he comes out with the Ula Fala and he has no one to hand it to. And like you said, with no wise men, there is no tribal chief. So what does this mean for the Roman Reigns character now? And like, it's tough to say he's full babyface because he just went off and assaulted CM Punk with a steel chair for a little bit. But it is also tough to say full heel because he just had everyone turn on him. So what is kind of the next evolution in the character of Roman Reigns, now that he is kind of this lone wolf? Is there a bit of a, like, we've already done the bloodline coming back together, and now Jay is the champion, so he's not going to go as a second in command to anyone, to Roman Reigns. So that is an interesting part. I think that we still get somewhat of a tribal chief type of a thing with Roman Reigns, and I do think that there was a bit of symbolism in them bringing those video boards down around Roman with all the different members of the family and everything like that, where you could kind of say, like, look, Roman was going into this alone, but he wasn't really alone because he still has the backing of his family. But there's another area, another level story of that story that you can tell, because at that time, he's the head of the table because he is the world champion. Well, that's Jay now. And Jacob Fatu, while not exactly aligned, is still, part of the family, I think. So he has the United States Championship now. So all of that, where does Roman go in all of this? I do think, Deeds, is really, really fascinating. I don't know if we get a full-on character switch necessarily, but I do think that we get some evolution in this character going forward now with Roman. I'm curious to see what the follow-up is with him now, because he has been on a very part-time schedule for a while now, right? But you see some of the interviews and he's like, yeah, I got like 2 or 3 years left. And so does that mean we get a little bit more full-time from him now that it is on Netflix, a bigger platform? Like, what's what is kind of the usage of a lot of these guys, where you would have some part-time stuff, but now this is the biggest platform they have ever been on, with all due respect to Fox and USA Network and everything like that. It is a whole lot easier to sell Roman Reigns on coming back on Netflix every week than it is coming back to the USA Network. So do we get a little bit more full-time from some of these guys because this has turned into a more mainstream thing? There is more money coming in now with all of this, and there is a bigger platform for them to do their thing on it. So I do think really interesting next few weeks and months ahead for the WWE. And that is going to start with WWE Raw coming up tonight. It is always a noteworthy show. It has not always delivered, but the WWE needs it to in a real big way coming up here tonight. So let's preview what WWE needs to see from Monday Night Raw. It is a new season, the new year in WWE. They played the video last night where Triple H was like, okay, we're done. And then something had slapped on his desk. And all right, well, that was the offseason. Now it's up into the next year. And that is what it is like for wrestling fans, as the Raw after Mania has kind of taken on a life of its own. And sometimes the hype can overshadow what we actually get to experience on the Monday after WrestleMania. But this is the first one in the Netflix era. So what do we get? I think the first thing, you need a strong angle with Cena saying he's going to ruin wrestling on Monday. I would imagine this means we get the spinner belt back in some way, shape, or form. I hope it is more than just that. Like, I know, talking about this with AEW, I know I can be very impatient when it comes to these sorts of stories, where I can really want there to be, I just want to know everything now. Let's just get to the next thing and get moving, and let me know that now. And so I know I can be impatient, but this feels like it needs to be a very big episode of Raw, and this story needs to make us forget that underwhelming feeling we had not even 24 hours ago at WrestleMania. That this needs to make us feel like, okay, holy shit, here we go. This is going to be amazing. Like, not to speak positively of the human being, but Brock Lesnar coming back to come out and beat the shit out of John Cena after that. Now, don't literally do that, but having that sort of a thing where after Raw, you are buzzing. It's like, I can't wait till we get to Raw next week and get this ball rolling again, because that is not the feeling right now. The feeling right now is I am interested to see Raw, because I need to make sense of this and I want this to be fun again, and that was not fun. So again, what is this strong angle that we are getting with John Cena? Do we get more of a Rock tie-in? Is there more of a group out of this than just John Cena? And what do we have now in this particular thing? And so, look, like this is the first time in the Triple H kind of era here where momentum is rather, not significantly down, but momentum is down. Things are, like, the public perception anyway, is trending a little bit negatively for the first time. And they were feeling themselves this week. You could tell in the lead up to WrestleMania, where, like, they are taking some not so veiled shots at AEW, and they are just flaunting political stuff all over the place, which they would never do. But there was a lot of just like, yeah, we know we're on a roll right now. So where now do they go that has slowed a little bit? Because we have seen a number of wrestling promotions, and I'm not going to say the John Cena thing is going to kill WWE or anything like that, but we have seen a number of promotions have a really difficult time getting that momentum and getting that ball rolling once it has stopped going in a different direction. So fascinated to see how Triple H will respond with all of this tonight. I am anticipating a Rusev debut. I think a lot of us were anticipating that on Monday. On Sunday with the Randy Orton thing. So I am anticipating we get some form of a Rusev involvement. I am going to keep kind of going to bat for Jeff Cobb being the muscle of a new Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman group, and have him be integrated in that way. And that is another follow-up I'm interested by. This one isn't a make it make sense. This one is more of a, I just want to see where they go with it, because that was the best thing really coming out of Monday Night Raw was coming out of WrestleMania into Raw was the Rollins Heyman situation that was brewing there. So I am really hoping that turns into a bit of a faction. I think that a lot of times as wrestling fans, we can get a little bit too faction warfare-y. And even, like, honestly, after we finished the stream last night on twitch.tv/primetimepk doing WWE 2K25, I went into the universe mode for the first time, and everyone's in a faction. And that can get a little watered down and everything too. But I do think that there could be a value still, if you are going to have any Rock involvement, having a Rock Cena kind of a faction, bringing that in, having Rollins have a couple of other guys with Paul Heyman to help elevate them a little bit. And I do think the time is now for that. When you hear Roman Reigns talking about how he only has a couple of years left, Randy Orton was just in his 20th WrestleMania. There's a reason only a couple of guys get to 20 WrestleManias. Because that's very hard, and you then have to be quite old. So that is definitely going to be a thing. Kevin Owens, I don't think he is super close to retiring, but having a neck surgery that takes you out 12 to 16 months certainly doesn't lengthen your clock at all. And Cody Rhodes isn't the youngest cat in the world anymore either. So that there is now, I think, while they still have this momentum and while they still have all these eyeballs, I do think that there is a little bit of importance to at least put some of the spotlight on some of the younger talent in some of these elevated ways. And so that's why a Jacob Fatu is really important now. A Braun Breaker feels massively important given the major performance he had in the lead up to WrestleMania and at WrestleMania 41. So I do think now is the time to start factoring some of those guys in. And the easiest way to do that is by the way of factions. But another thing I was thinking going into this Raw tonight, I do think that while we can make our jokes about the brand split, and I will still hold on to the belief that a brand split can be a good thing, and all of that, but I do think that there is a need for a draft now. They've kind of fallen into this thing where they've been doing draft in the fall for the new season of it. But this is really the start of a new season in WWE, right? We talk about that a lot, but this is kind of the new year in World Wrestling Entertainment. And coming out of WrestleMania, it is a chance to freshen some things up. It is a chance to give some new life into some characters and shuffle the deck a little bit. And there's a couple I think that could really benefit from that right now. One of them is Charlotte. You look at what is going on in the women's division right now over on SmackDown, and there isn't a whole lot for her at this particular moment, right? I don't think anyone's really clamoring for the Tiffany Charlotte feud to continue. And honestly, that felt Dunsky on Monday or on Saturday, right? That felt like it was over and done. So what is next for her? I think getting drafted over to Monday Night Raw would kind of liven things up for her a little bit. Gunther, kind of same thing. I am sure we get somewhat of a rematch in there, but now we're beating him too many times, or we're having just a transitional championship thing with Jey Uso, and that doesn't help anybody. And so the easiest way to kind of avoid that is to draft Gunther over to SmackDown and just put them on different sides and have Gunther start to work up on the title picture over on the undisputed WWE championship side of everything. And so I do think that coming out of WrestleMania, where you do have a finality in a lot of these things, that is really the time to start doing this draft and start to really push that forward now for you. So that is kind of something that I would consider as just a little bit of advice from me towards the WWE. A couple more things that I'm looking for on Raw tonight, but a reminder, if you've missed any of this live stream or just, really enjoyed it, give it a like, or a follow or a subscription wherever you are based on or watching this on. But also you can catch it in podcast form, available on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm also wondering if we do get any kind of AAA or AAA integration into all of this tonight. You have the big announcement that caught a lot of people off guard on Monday. There have been some very subtle crossover stuff before with JBL going over there and getting involved in some stuff, and Chad Gable. There's obviously the Lucha thing involved with that. I'm obviously the spotlight would be Vikingo. Is there anything with him, maybe in the El Grande Americano storyline or anything like that? But I wonder now that we are. It's April 21st today. June 7th is going to come up very, very quickly. I wonder if we get any of that promoting towards the show in June with Worlds Collide. The one more thing I would like to see, I want a renewed focus on the New Day. I think they win the tag team titles, and that's awesome. And the match was a little lackluster, but I think that you come off of a hot angle with Big E, And then you don't have any Big E involvement in anything in the build-up to this, and it is just, it has lost so much steam, and they are having to rely on just kind of generic heel tactics to try to be this heel thing. And so I think that is a story that needs a bit of a shot in the arm going into this kind of new year for WWE. So those are a couple of things that I'm looking for from Monday Night Raw tonight. As always, wherever you are taking this in, we're going to have a Raw recap coming up tomorrow, streaming live at 10 a.m. on YouTube, Twitch, and Kick, and then available in podcast form wherever you get your podcasts. Another part of the Raw after WrestleMania is some debuts and some call-ups. And while we talked about a couple of debuts in the Raw preview, there's still a couple other ones that I have an eye on. So who should be making their main roster debut, at least in a official capacity, coming up this week? Let's break that all down. It is the start of a new year in the WWE as WrestleMania, disappointing as it was, is now behind us, and that means it's time for some fresh faces being brought into the mix. So, who are we looking for from NXT? Already talked a little bit. We are anticipating Rusev comes in and has an impact immediately. We are also anticipating that on Friday, Malachi Black probably makes his debut, as that was kind of being teased. But from the NXT call-ups, I think there are a couple. Talked about it a bit on the NXT recap show, available now on YouTube and Daily Motion. I feel like it is time to call Trick Williams up. I think you lost a lot of momentum with Trick coming out of WrestleMania, and I do think that there is now a bit of, like, diminishing returns if you keep him down there and keep him down there and keep him down there. Eventually, people are going to start to wonder, like, okay, why are we keeping this guy down there? And so you're not going to get that big buzz for him like you would have if you would have called him up basically right after he lost the championship to Obafemi. But again, I think a lot of momentum has been lost, and I think you can kickstart that right away. I do think that if you are going to keep him separate from Carmelo, I think you have to keep him all the way separate from Carmelo, and that means putting him on Monday Night Raw. And look, I've talked a bit in the Raw preview about how my want for a few factions. I think you could put Trick Williams right into a faction, whether it is in the, like, John Cena needing some backup or anything like that with closely tied to The Rock or something like that, and just have him really be locked in as someone in that world. I think that would be very beneficial to him. Or if you want him as a babyface, have him on the kind of Cody army of things going up against John Cena and their push to take back what was rightfully his or anything like that. I think that this kid has a ton of talent. I think he is really good. I think there are some limitations to what he can do, but I don't think he's working through them at NXT. So I do think that bringing him up on Monday Night Raw makes the most sense. Fraxium. This one seems obvious. They lose the tag team titles at Stand and Deliver. There is nothing left for them to do in the tag team division over there. So I would have them, come up now and come into the tag team division on Raw. That is significantly lacking at this point with the War Raiders, the New Day, and that's about it. LWO as well. I guess you could throw them into that mix too. But having Fraxium, again, with LWO, I think they could have some unbelievable matches with the New Day and just kind of continue their tag team dream run. I think that there could be a lot of fun had in that. I do think that if you put them on SmackDown, it's an already watered down tag team division, but they fit in stylistically very effectively with those guys. But I do think that you need to bolster the tag team division on Raw a little bit, and so I think these guys definitely help you out in that way. And I'm gonna say Julia. I think that, like, bringing her down to NXT and having her go for it a little bit down there was a smart move in the build-up to WrestleMania, but I do think now Stephanie Vacour gets the win in that Fatal 4-Way, that they crown a new North American champion. We could have some more matches with Julia and Stephanie, but there is no questioning that Julia is main roster ready. And honestly, like we talked about this in the NXT recap, but between Julia and Stephanie and Jordan Grace and Jada Parker and even some of the ones in the ladder match, when you're looking at a Sol Ruka and a Kailani Jordan and some of those performers, there's a lot that are ready to get called up. But now I do think because that division is so stacked, you do need to take a couple off the top and liven things up in the Monday Night Raw women's division. And so with that, I do think Julia, again, moving to Raw would be a whole lot of fun. You have a ready-made story with Io Sky if you wanted to do that, or if you just have her, like her against a Liv Morgan right away, or something along those lines, I think would be a whole lot of fun. Either way, whatever you do with Julia, she has star potential written all over her, and I think that they, again, would get a very nice boost in the women's division over on Raw if you were to do that one. A couple more here that we're looking for to get potentially called up here this week. I have Ethan Page as well. Again, I don't think he's learning a whole lot being down there. The one part of it that's a little bit different from the women's side is that NXT as a show, while I get frustrated about talking about NXT like this because it is supposed to be developmental, and so, like, your main focus is developing and getting guys ready for the main roster, not, well, this is a television show. But it is still a television show. It is on TV, relatively prominently on CW in the States and on NXT here in Canada and internationally. You don't have a main event scene right now on the men's side. Especially if we're calling Trick up to the main roster. And so taking away from that does feel a little counterproductive at this time, but Ethan Page is ready for this. And again, this is me desperately trying to hold on to any semblance of The Rock stuff in the John Cena story, but Ethan Page and The Rock have a bit of a tit for tat on the NXT that The Rock showed up on. And so again, if you want to introduce Ethan Page at a high level and get him involved in some things right away, having him be one of the backup guys with John Cena, I think would be a phenomenal way to introduce him there. So I would have him get called up and put him in. I picked for other ones, different shows. Ethan Page, I just put The Rock universe. I would have him involved in that one. And the last one, it's Obafemi. He's the NXT champion right now. He is so ready. Is there, again, a couple of tightening up things that we can do with this guy? For sure there is. But he screams ready. Doesn't he? He screams that he is just like, you put him on a poster or a YouTube thumbnail or whatever, and it draws your attention, like, who is that guy? And so I think, again, you kind of need that. And he has built himself up very, very strongly. Now, again, the main event scene on the men's side on NXT right now, not the strongest. And so taking the champion away, not great. But I do think that he is ready for this sort of a thing. I would put him over on SmackDown. I think that eventually he can be in the world title mix, but I do think easing him in a little bit would be good. And the SmackDown kind of mid-card level has been better as of late and could get quite a boost now with Jacob Fatu as the United States champion. But that scene is not nearly as good as the Intercontinental title scene is on Raw right now. So I think Obafemi would benefit from going over to SmackDown. So those are some of the call-ups that I would be very fascinated by as we head towards a new year in the WWE. That is going to do it for the combat sports portion, or the wrestling, I guess, portion of this one today. If that's what you were here for, I would recommend sticking around. We got some great basketball and hockey conversations coming up. But if this isn't your cup of tea, fully understand. Thank you so much. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube. If you are watching on Twitch, again, a follow is greatly appreciated. A subscription is, I am eternally grateful for that. But whatever you can do, a follow would be greatly appreciated. And sharing this video, same thing goes on Kick. I can't have subscribers there yet, but any kind of a follow or anything there really helps me out a lot. And if you missed any of this, available in podcast form, but a lot of wrestling talk still to come as the week moves along. Let's shift gears now and go into the sporting world as the playoffs kicked off, or tipped off, I guess, in the NBA and the National Hockey League. To varying returns, we'll say. Let's start our conversations in the world of sports around the National Basketball Association. Playoff time is here. What a wondrous occasion it is. With the one exception, this weekend sucked. This was a bad bad weekend of basketball in the NBA and not the jump start to the postseason that everyone was hoping for. Now, I don't think we need to come on here and say, well, how do we fix the NBA? How do we fix these issues or anything like that? I don't think you need to do that. It was just that you had 8 games this weekend and 6 of them sucked. That's basically what this comes down to. There wasn't much in terms of surprises. There wasn't much in terms of drama. It was all just kind of bleh. In-depth analysis that you come here for, obviously. But let's start with the exception of the weekend, and that was Denver against the LA Clippers. Denver gets, they flashed this on the broadcast, Denver gets their 8th 15-point comeback in the playoffs since 2019. Probably not really a way you want to be living your life, especially against the Clippers team that went 18-3 to close out the regular season, was actually the betting favorite in this series going into this particular matchup. But you could see why a lot of people just have this one in 7 because these two teams are very, very closely matched. One thing that was really concerning, I think, on the Denver side was how poor they were defensively. There was a lot of easy looks at the rim. Now, I do think they kind of overstated it on the broadcast a little bit. They were talking about, oh man, look at another easy look in the rim. And it's done having to go up and do like this. His no one appendage is facing the same direction and he hits a wicked spinning layup that goes in and like, oh, another easy look at the rim. It's like, was it? Like they got to the rim, and so that is easier than if you would have tried to just like spin it up from the 3-point line. But that was still a contested look anyway. But still, it was the fact that he got to the rim, and it was some very poor defense on the perimeter, which we're going to talk about a bunch today. And there was a lot of issues once you got into the paint. Jokic, I know a lot of people say, oh, you know what? His defense is actually underrated. It wasn't yesterday, or on Saturday, sorry. It was bad. He was not great defensively in this one. And so that is going to be, I think, a real problem for the Nuggets going forward. If they can't keep this Clippers team out of the paint, then they're going to have some trouble. Like Kawhi Leonard, he is a good 3-point shooter, and we saw in that game, but he loves to just dine out on mid-range jumpers, right? And James Harden, he'll truck up a ton of 3 balls, but he does also like to kind of get into the paint and try to draw some of those stupid fouls and stuff like that. And Norm Powell, again, has worked his way into being a somewhat reliable 3-point shooter, but he likes attacking the rim as well. This is a team that really likes to attack. And so if Denver can't stop them from attacking, that's going to be a bit of an issue here. And so it looked like the Clippers were going to start to pull away. And then Jamal Murray steps up with big shot after big shot after big shot after big shot here. And he had some massive plays to get them back into this game and really get them rolling here in this one. And eventually they come away with a victory. And you had your other guys step up enough. Brown comes up with a couple of steals and some dunks when they really needed those kind of things. You got a couple of big shots from MPJ, specifically early from him. And I love that motion they run to get Gordon going a little bit, where you have Jokic at kind of the top of the circle there, and Gordon basically from the free throw line will set a screen. It lets Murray come around, and you either get a handoff to Murray where he is looping around and has a lot of momentum to either stop up for a 3 or come around and either attack the rim or see what you have, because you now have essentially 2 pick and rolls going at the same time. Or what the Clippers do, they end up doubling Murray coming around the top of it. That leaves Gordon basically wide open. Jokic is going to find that, dumps it off to him, and gets the dunk. So they got Gordon going in a very good way. This starting 5, they worked together very, very effectively. And so there were obviously some great moments there. And then Russell Westbrook did just enough to not screw things up. It was very obvious the Clippers were going to let him shoot. And it was at times one of those ones where you do have to ask, hey, great that you're taking open shots. Have you wondered why you're open all the time? Because there were a few of those, but he makes some very, very big shots in this game that let the Nuggets kind of hang around and then at one point take the lead. But goddamn, did he make some dumb calls in this game too that were just so I like the Nuggets. I would like to see, I enjoy watching Jokic play. Obviously, Canadian here, want to see good things for Jamal Murray. Now, I also want to see some good things for Norman Powell and for Kawhi Leonard and all that too. But I did find myself kind of leaning in the direction of cheering for Denver in this animated prediction of them in 7. So, you want that. You want that to be correct. And so I found myself getting incredibly frustrated with Russell Westbrook in a couple of times. One, at the end of the game, they get the ball in Jokic's hands. They go from Murray. I'm pretty sure it was a screen. And they get it to Jokic at the top of the key. A double comes off of Westbrook because obviously, and there is 6 seconds left. Jokic, if he would have, as soon as that double came, if he would have skipped it over to Westbrook, Russ has a wide open three, and who knows. But instead, because he's not in a video game or a robot, he has to turn and face him. He passes it to Westbrook. It gave the defense just enough time to rotate over, and then Westbrook didn't have a fucking clue what to do. He just kind of got caught in a moment where he thought about shooting it, and it's like, no, I'm this isn't my shot. I should try to attack. I should try to get something. But that got cut off because the rotation came quick enough because the Clippers are good defensively, and you have Zubats over there as well. So he stops up and tries to force up this weird, awkward three, and it doesn't exist, and it just falls down. It was very much like the end of the March Madness National Championship game. And so to have the ball coming out of a timeout with enough time that you could kind of settle up and run your offense with 10 seconds to go, and to get exactly 0 shots out of it, you can't be doing that. And then on the opposite end of it, in overtime, the Nuggets are up by, I think, 1, and so you can't just sit back and just not do anything, right? And I do understand you kind of want to do something so that if they do something, you still have time to do another something. But they are up by 1. There is, I think, 14 seconds left and 10 seconds left on the shot clock. And Westbrook's like, all right, time to go, and just drives it into the lane and forces up this ugly, awful contested layup. Now, he gets lucky because Gordon is there for the offensive rebound. And if you are a Westbrook defender, which I do somewhat fall into at times, you can say, well, he knew he could do that because you have a size advantage down low with Gordon, who can get an offensive rebound and do exactly what he did. But I don't think that thought process went in. I think Russ was like, I have ball, there is rim, let me go. And, oh man, it was just, holy cow. Could we not, like, if you feel like there is a lane to go and you're up by 1 and there's 10 seconds left, again, just like you can't, because you have to take a shot at some point. You don't want to let them hold it and like, oh, hey, we held it, we missed, now they have a chance to win. If you have something, then go. But he didn't, and it missed, and they get lucky because Gordon gets the offensive rebound, makes a couple of free throws, and they end up being able to ice that game away. But holy cow, the Russell Westbrook experience was on in full display out in Denver on Saturday afternoon. On the Clippers side, Leonard and Harden were just simply fantastic. Both of them put on very, very good performances. I thought Zubats was strong, really, as well. You got a couple good shown, like Powell hit a couple of good shots. Also, the big thing for them is that just that final stop that they needed in overtime, they never really got it. They got the stop at the end of regulation, but even then, to get it to that point where they needed to hit a couple of big shots late, they needed a couple of more stops, and those just weren't coming for them. And so I do still think that this is going to be a lengthy series. I don't think that seeing that you're thinking, okay, well, now Denver's got it. I think you are kind of on the assumption, oh my God, Denver just stole one. Thank God they were on home court and didn't just lose home court advantage, which is the biggest advantage they have in this series. So desperation time comes through for the Denver Nuggets, but settle in, folks, because this is going to be a long series. And we got, for what the weekend was, a banger of a game, by real, actual eyeball standards, an okay game between the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks. Eventually, a lot of guys on the Knicks had big moments. OG Anunoby was massive at both ends in this game, coming up with 19 points in the first half, really extending the offense with his range from three-point shooting. Like, he was the best version of OG Anunoby on Saturday afternoon. Just making all of those shots and defensively taking on the number one assignment on the other team and really making life difficult on Cade Cunningham early on. And that was where, from a Knicks standpoint, you were getting a little bit concerned because OG is knocking him down from 3. And on the Detroit side, Cade was doing nothing. I think he started like 2 for 7 or something like that, which, like, percentage-wise doesn't look too terrible, but just on the court, it didn't look great for him. And the Pistons were still hanging around and at one point winning. Beasley was hitting a couple of good shots from distance, and they were just kind of hanging around in this game. And so you were getting a little bit concerned, like, look, we have shut their guy down, and we're still not ahead here. What is going on? And then eventually things start to wake up a little bit. Cat has a couple of big plays on offense. I like he is obviously very confident in his three-point shooting. I think we've established that, right? But he also I like it when he can attack a little bit, and it is not the quickest of first steps or anything like that, but he had Tobias Harris on him because, and that was one of the adjustments we were looking for in this series, is how do they defend Karl Anthony Towns, the three-point shooter, because before it was with Stewart and Duran, and they would just back off, and Cat is going to hit those. Say what you will about the guy, he's going to hit those. And so instead, they put Tobias Harris on, who they feel a little bit more comfortable going out and challenging him at that distance, but Cat is like 100 pounds bigger than him. And so he didn't just like NBA Live style post him up from the top of the key, but he just went right into his chest and drove in and got some buckets. So I do like how Cat played in this game. And so those guys came up with some big plays while Brunson was trying to find it. And then eventually Brunson did find it. And maybe in playoffs, he just needs to have one injury before he can really get going. But the ankle roll gives you some concern on the Knicks side. But Brunson eventually does get going. And then Josh Hart, man, every year you watch him in the playoffs, and every year it is just like, this is a dude who you win with. He makes those basketball plays that are the types of plays that you need this time of year to be successful. So many opportunities, so many second chance opportunities, and offensive rebounds and big plays defensively. He was just everywhere when they needed him. And still, it was a little bit close. And then Cam Payne comes in, and he is, I don't even want to say polarizing, because we all know what he is at this point. When it is on, hot damn, man, it is so valuable, because the other team, they're not expecting it. It feels like found money for you, and it just feels like a gut punch when he goes out and just starts styling on guys. And he had a couple of big shots that launched that 21-0 run for the Knicks at the end of this game that helps them pull away. So from a Knicks standpoint, if you are a Knicks fan, you got great contributions from everyone you wanted to, right? OG, Cat, Brunson, Hart. You get some extra ones from even Robinson, like some big plays inside, helps you out there too. And then Payne gives you some energy off the bench. So you're feeling like, okay, everyone contributed. We ended up winning this game. That's fantastic. On the we're concerned aspect of it, you get a little bit worried because you needed a 21-0 run to kind of put a wrap on things. And that's, suboptimal, I would say, when you need to put that kind of a thing together to win a basketball game. You had to try really hard against this Pistons team. So a little bit of concern, I would say, there on a Knicks standpoint. But you have to be fine with how the Detroit Pistons started this series. They did a lot of good things for this being their first playoff game. They hung around for a really long time. They had their top player kind of feeling it a little bit. He's locked down by one of the better defensive players in the league. You're on Madison Square Garden. You got Breen 8 steps away from you, yelling bang at different points. Like there's a lot going on in your playoff debut at Madison Square Garden. And so eventually he kind of settles in, and your other guy, like Tim Hardaway Jr., had a great game, letting Cade kind of get the feel of everything. And I thought, again, Beasley hit a lot of really good shots to get them rolling in this game. And so, again, Cade eventually gets his playoff legs under him, and you're feeling good about it. The one thing, and this is where the inexperience comes, is once the Knicks got rolling, this team couldn't stop it. Late, that momentum is building, the Garden is bumping, people are getting fired up. Again, bang is being yelled over there, and you have a young team that just, they can't stop it. They haven't experienced this before. It's one thing to face a bit of a 9-0 run against the Knicks on a Tuesday in January, but this is the playoffs at the Garden, and it got to the Pistons, I think, a little bit. So a very valuable learning experience. I don't know if it is enough to make a difference into a game 2, but a very valuable learning experience for the Detroit Pistons. A reminder, if you missed any of the live stream today, you can catch it all in podcast form. Just search Couch Potato Diary wherever you get your podcasts, including on Apple Podcasts. We move on. What a performance by the Minnesota Timberwolves. They needed their offense to step up, and the big question we had coming into the series was, will they be able to shoot from distance? If they can do that, then they have a real opportunity here in this series. And oh my God, did they. Let me just take a look here really quick. I wanted to see the official stats on this one before we dive in. I just kind of forgot to pull that up in doing the prep for today. Killing some time, getting over here. From 3, they were, 21 of 42. It really felt like they had more of an edge on that than 6 extra threes, which is 18 extra points, which ends up being close to the game, I guess. But it felt like, honestly, 21 threes, That's a lot. 21 of 42. When you're shooting 50% and you're putting up over 40 shots from three, that's a very good night. And that still feels low for what they were able to do, because they were all from deep and they all just felt like daggers when it's Naz Reid pulling up and you have Anthony Edwards getting away from the steal of LeBron and jacking one up from distance. It felt like soul crushing threes that these teams were getting, and really, really disappointing from a Lakers standpoint when that was tough. And then like after that barrage, it's just like Naz Reid was fantastic. Edwards was great. He gets banged up in this game. And I think came back for a little bit and then left again. But either way, they were great. And then the area you thought they were going to control, they started off a little bit slowly on, right? Like they were out rebounded and out second chanced in the first quarter. And you're thinking, man, if the Lakers can win that, then this thing is a wrap. And you're watching it early on, because I watched this after I knew what happened. And so you're watching it early on. It's like, okay, well, Luka has 12 of the first 28 points in this game. They have an 8-point lead. Like, how did this go? And they're dominating in the paint. How did this go so sideways? Well, then they stopped dominating in the paint, and they were just getting crushed down low. And so again, that is where that big advantage that Minnesota has really starts to shine. And the other area that we talked about was defensively. The Lakers just couldn't get a stop when they needed to. Now, they're giving up 3-point shots from half court. So some of those, like, what, do you want him to block that? Like, I don't know what more you want to do on those when the team is just jacking those up and they're just feeling it. So a little bit of the credit does go to Minnesota, but the Lakers, again, they couldn't stop the bleeding when that was happening. And then Minnesota's strong defense is turning into fast break points. Through 3 quarters, fast break points were 23-4. Minnesota was just out and running on the Lakers and crushing them in that way. And you think about, like, all these LeBron teams over the years, they were the ones who dominated in the fast break. And those were the ones that really ended up killing you. Minnesota was able to get that. But again, Anthony Edwards was big in this game, and just a lot of guys stepped up in some big time ways. Naz Reid probably being the chief among them. And now for the Lakers, there are concerns, right? You need more than just Luka on the offensive side of things. LeBron, I think they said the first time in his playoff career, he had 0 points in the first quarter. He was kind of silent and just kind of letting Luka do his thing. But then when they needed more than just Luka, it was still just Luka doing his thing. Reeves didn't have a phenomenal game, and boy, did they beat him up defensively. No one really had a great game offensively, aside from Luka Doncic. And so they are going to need that. They're going to need more than that to be successful and make this run that a lot of people expected them to make when you go out and make that Luka Doncic move and you end up getting a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. Now, the Minnesota Timberwolves aren't your regular 6 seed, but you're not going to get regular 6 seeds in the West for a bit because of how stacked this conference is. So they are going to need more from LeBron in game number 2. They're going to need more from Reeves in game number 2, and they're going to have to figure out this thing defensively. Now, you have to assume that like 21 3-pointers probably aren't going in on you for the next game in game 2. But I mean, like 15 is still a lot. And so where does the rest of the defense come from? Like Reeves got exposed on the defensive end. And so all the areas you were worried about on the Lakers really shined through. And then a couple areas you weren't even thinking about also struggled in this game. I still think the Lakers have what it takes to win this series, but they need to show it. And I thought JJ Redick was right in his kind of chat with the ESPN sideline reporter. The Lakers played like this was a regular season game. Timberwolves didn't, and that was a big difference in this one. Speaking of different, Steph Curry, another brilliant performance for the for the Golden State Warriors against the Houston Rockets. Now, in his career, I don't think this probably cracks his top 50 for games, but 31 points, 12 of 19 shooting, another 5 of 9 from 3. He's special, and it is just an absolute joy and treat to be able to watch him play at this high of a level consistently. And this is tell your grandkids about type of stuff for Steph Curry. The thing that would concern me a little bit from a Golden State standpoint is you have an epic performance from Steph. Jimmy Butler puts on a very, very strong showing. You couldn't even break 100, and you only won by 10. So there's a little bit of a concern there that you had your best case scenario from your best guys, and it was still a bit of a rock fight for a lot of this game. There was quite a bit that I think was played at the Houston Rockets pace. And I think even though you lose on home court and you lose by double digits in game 1, I still think that there is a lot that you can take away positively from a Rockets standpoint. A lot of guys making their playoff debut. And now you've experienced this. Now you've experienced them. can we go out and play our basketball now? I think Şengün getting those big numbers in the paint, that's going to be repeatable. No one else on Golden State is his size. Now it is just about how do you play off of that. And now we're not exactly talking about Bill Russell as a passer in the paint there for Şengün, and we are talking about a fairly responsible Golden State team. So I don't think all of a sudden they're going to rush in any sort of wild ways that is going to lead to a lot of open looks for some of these guys, and that's going to allow a Van Vliet to get going, or a Brooks to get going, or a Thompson to get going, or anything like that. I think Golden State is smarter than that, but I do still think that we saw best case scenario from a couple big guys on Golden State, and we didn't see close to that for the Rockets, and they still were able to keep this one relatively close-ish on this night. So some positives to take away, I think, on the Houston Rockets side of things. Moral victories, a couple of teams could say they had them in the playoffs on the first weekend. You cannot say that about the Memphis Grizzlies. They just got absolutely worked over and just destroyed by Oklahoma City. 6 players for the Thunder get into double digits. No one played more than 26 minutes. They showed up in a big-time way and just really put that foot down like, hey, this is who we are, and we're not messing around this time in the playoffs at all. This wasn't close. From the word go, it wasn't close. And Memphis, they're just, talent-wise, they're not close to them. We kind of broke down the Memphis-Dallas game a little bit, and it's, okay, well, they got this. They have no answer for anything that Oklahoma City wants to do on either end. Defensively, they can shut things down. Offensively, there isn't a whole lot that Memphis can offer. And so my one note on the Memphis side is this is where we missed the 5-game series in the first round. Because, yeah, this one's going to be over very, very quickly. Speaking of which, the Celtics, just too good. It's not fair when Derek White can score 30. Didn't get a chance to check. I feel pretty good that their record is probably pretty strong when White is scoring 30 here. This is what this series is going to be, is the Magic have 2 guys who you feel confident in, and they have an offense that struggles and a defense that is very good, but not good enough to drag the Celtics down into a game where their scoring output is going to be comfortable for them. And so you look at it, like it's just the Magic are who we thought they were. Banchero, 36 points, 11 rebounds. Wagner had 23 points. No one else had more than 7. And they're not going to be able to keep up with Boston scoring. Their defense is excellent, but it's not going to be able to limit Boston in the way that you need to. And you limited Tatum and Brown, and White still killed you. Like, there's so many options on this team. They are so good, and they are really going to shine, I think, as this series probably is a pretty quick one. Ditto out with Cleveland and Miami. The Cavaliers with a statement over the Miami Heat. Miami, they don't have a clear answer for the guard play of the Cavs. Ty Jerome was a beast with 28 coming off the bench. Mitchell and Garland go for 30 and 27. Bam is awesome, but he can't guard everyone. And so you see, like, the points for the bigs, not a whole lot. Now, there wasn't a whole lot for them because the guards kept scoring the whole time, but it is great for Miami that they got here and battled their way through that overtime game against Atlanta to get into this spot, but they aren't close to Cleveland, and they actually stack up in a way that is really, really bad against this Cavs team. So this is another one that you can kind of see being a bit of a quicker series, because Miami, it's just their vulnerabilities on the defensive side can be attacked very aggressively by Cleveland. And now look, Cleveland is a team that you can say that about anyone, and Cleveland can do that, because we can say, like, okay, defensively the guards for Miami have their moments. And so they can take advantage of them. But if we were talking about the Lakers and their problems on the interior, okay, well, Cleveland can take advantage of that too. Like, this is just a spectacularly built basketball team that would do this to a lot of teams in this first round. And so that the eventual challenge moving up is going to be, I think, interesting. You look at how the bracket would stack up. Obviously, Cleveland has the 1 seed. They would not have to worry about the Celtics until the East final, and they'll get the winner of the series we're going to talk about in a second, but they just stack up really well against everyone. So very fascinated to see what this whole thing is going to look like when we get down to, with all due respect, but the high-level teams coming out of this. A reminder that the stream's a little long today. If you need that fuel, check out swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Let me put that up on the screen again. PK Primetime at swiftenergy.gg. milwaukee.gg. They got some really good flavors, some really good merch as well to help you out with all of that. So check them out there. The Milwaukee Bucks are in trouble, man. With no Lillard, they are really having to work really, really hard to get their buckets. And like the Pacers, we'll talk about them defensively in a second. Good on them for what they have been able to do so far defensively, but this is not a team that you should be working that hard against on the offensive side of things. And it just felt like with no Lillard out there, and that's going to be like blood clots, that's serious. With no Lillard, it was just really, really difficult for Milwaukee to get anything going on their offensive side. And then defensively, they were just getting killed. No perimeter defense, and they just got beat up at the rim because of it. Everything that the Pacers wanted to do offensively, they could do. They were attacking so effectively, and then you start to collapse on that, and then you start kicking it out, and then you get Turner open for three, and you get Siakam open for three, and you get all these different things, and it just really starts to pile on. So credit goes to the Indiana Pacers for a really dynamic performance. They looked really good. Nembhard was a stud in game one. He took it to him off the dribble. He was hitting from distance as well. He just had a really well-rounded attack. And like you look at this, like Halliburton, I didn't even stop to look at his numbers. Like he had a fine game, but this was not a game where Halliburton took over. This was about Nembhard and about Turner and about Siakam and about those guys being weapons on the offensive side of things. And when Turner and Siakam are hitting from deep, this team becomes almost unstoppable at that point. And you could see like Giannis, he wants to get up on Siakam, but Pascal is still quick enough that he can go off the dribble too. And so even Giannis, this excellent defender, is kind of caught in no man's land because everything is falling for the Pacers, but they're also killing you when they get into the paint. And so it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. When things are rolling that way, the Pacers offensively are a really fun team to watch. The upgrade this year for them, and I get they went far last year, but no one took that super seriously. The upgrade for them is that they have really worked hard on the defensive side of things. This is not the Pacers from a year ago. This is a team that has really stepped up their game defensively and really worked at everything to start to make this a bit more of a complete basketball team. Now, again, they're not Orlando when it comes to defense. It is still a weakness for them, but you're not just going to be able to blow by them. It's going to be 140 to 135. This is going to be a team that's going to make you work on the offensive side. That is for sure. So I don't know what the answer for the Bucks is. It basically is play Giannis 48 minutes and just hope for the best. Because offensively, it looked like a grind. And defensively, it looked like a major problem all game. And it's tough to have to fix both of those at playoff time. So that is the rundown of everything from the NBA. Going to have more of a recap coming up on the stream on Tuesday. Again, we'll be live coming up Tuesday at 10 a.m. on twitch.tv/primetimepk, youtube.com/@couchpotatodiary, and kick.com/primetimepk as well. One more segment to go. We've run through WrestleMania. We have run through the NBA playoffs. It's now time to look at the Stanley Cup playoffs as the NHL's final tournament also kicked off over the weekend. A few more competitive games, at least, but a lot of storylines to watch and a nice reminder of how things go this time of year. Let's talk about all of it as we get into some hockey talk. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and perhaps no sport, in the major ones anyway, changed so much from the regular season to the postseason. And so the always interesting start to the playoffs commenced on Saturday, and we got a nice reminder right off the top. Let's break it down. We'll start with the Leafs against the Ottawa Senators, and Toronto making a statement in Game 1 against Ottawa. Say whatever you want about how this game went, about reasons X, Y, and Z for what happened. 6 goals is still 6 goals. And I'm sure we could go back and look at playoff games past for the Leafs and playoff performances past for the Leafs where they didn't get 6 goals in 2 or 3 or 4 games. Like that has been the Achilles heel for this Leafs team, is that when the lights are brightest and everything starts to mean the most, this is a team that just grabs the sticks a little bit tighter and has a little bit more of a problem as it goes along. So really, I think really impressive they were able to do that in this game. And going 3 for 6 on the power play is what I think a lot of people are going to point at. Again, though, the power play has been a big struggle for the Leafs at playoff time before. So from a Leaf standpoint, I think you have to take the positives here. You can but this thing all the way, but there have been a lot of times where they wouldn't even take advantage of what they had to take advantage of. So, progress for the Toronto Maple Leafs. On the Ottawa side, you're a little worried about Allmark. He was not sharp enough there for them to win this series. Like, he needs to be a steal a game or two guy in this series for them to have a hope. But I'm not going to say he cost them, because I think just overall they just weren't as good as Ottawa. But I do think that Allmark, they are going to need him to be spectacular in this series, and he simply wasn't that. But overall, this was a full learning experience for the Ottawa Senators in Game 1. This was the playoff debut for a lot of their guys, and they faced a team that was ready to go. And I'm not going to say they weren't, but they weren't as ready as the Leafs were going into Game 1. So adjustments now can be made for Ottawa going into the second one. But this was a bit of a reminder, and I think this was the main reminder, is that the first couple of days of the playoffs are always a little crazy when it comes to penalty calls, because the refs are still in regular season penalty call mode, and the players are now amped up for the playoffs. So they're running in and they are taking extra shots that they wouldn't dream of in the regular season, but we got our extra legs under us, and that means crash, bang, boom. And the referees are still in, well, you can't do that. And so a lot of penalties get called the first weekend, even the first week of the playoffs. So it's something to remember. Put this in the brain for next year. Teams that have good power plays. A lot of times we talk about this, right? And talked about it with Vegas, and we'll bring that up in a little bit here. But talked about them on the radio. Their penalty kill has struggled at times this season. And one of the things that a lot of people were talking about, including me, was like, okay, you don't have to kill as many penalties in the playoffs. And that is true as we go along. It is not true for the first few games of this. And so it is dumb that this is an adjustment you kind of have to make. But when you are looking at these games and kind of handicapping them, I do think you have to add an extra power play goal or two in your assumptions for these games because of how they end up being called. Eventually it does level off into playoff everything, and then it's just wild and crazy. But that generally happens around the first overtime game, is that eventually they let it all go, and then you just kind of change what normal is. But that's just anecdotal. Anyway, the Winnipeg Jets, the other Canadian team in action over the weekend, they survive another high-scoring playoff game. And obviously, the story coming out of this is going to be Connor Hellebuyck. I think I saw a note that he has the longest stretch of 3+ goals allowed in the history of playoff hockey or something like that, or at least the last little while. I would assume the last little while, because a lot of high-scoring games in postseasons and whatnot. But anyway, I do find it tough to put all the blame on him for this one. The first goal, it's a failed clearing attempt. You have Iafallo and Lowry overcommitting at the blue line. A nice play by Fowler holds it in and gets it past him. And now all of a sudden, what was already a 5-on-4 is now basically a 4-on-2 down at the net. And the puck ends up with Thomas, who is one of the last people you want to have in that situation with the puck, and he fires it in. So while you would love a save in that spot, it's still not an ideal circumstance for him. The second goal, it is a brutal turnover by Shen, who is trying to go skate to stick, and he did. It was just the wrong stick, and Sundqvist scores to give them a second goal. And then the third one, Sundqvist again is all over the vision of Connor Hellebuyck, and it's a perfect shot by Kyrou. And so, while you can individually on each one be like, well, it's not all on him there, and well, it's not all on him there, and well, it's not all on him there. At some point, he's getting paid to stop at least one of those, right? And so not every high danger chance has to go in. Not every power play chance has to go in. At some point, if this team is going to get ultimately where they need to get to, he is going to have to be the one that makes some saves that you are not expected to make. And that has become, I think, a bit of an issue for him when it comes to playoff time. He has lost a lot of the benefit of the doubt. Now, I do think getting the matchup of St. Louis, while you like a lot of the offensive pieces that they have, with Kyrou, Tomic, Buchnevich can be a problem. Sundqvist is built for this time of year. And Snuggerud feels like he's going to be a guy. Overall, they don't really have the firepower that you were dealing with the Colorado last year. So maybe you're able to survive and just kind of reset in this a little bit. But that would be a bit concerning from a Winnipeg Jets standpoint, seeing what happened there in Game 1. But on the upside, the top line was dynamite. Scheifele Connor, Iafallo, all were just excellent. Shifley's passing was on full display. I constantly forget how good this guy is at passing the puck around. He was excellent. Connor has that big shot, and Iafallo was great around the net. Defensively, 5-on-5, they didn't give up a ton. A few too many turnovers, for sure, but still, overall, I think they played okay, at least defensively, for an 8-goal hockey game. But this is a really big win for them. After the playoff disappointment last year, to go out and put 5 in, even though one's an empty netter, to put 5 in on night 1 and survive not the best night from your goalie, that's a real nice vote of confidence there. On the blue side, they battled, but they fell short. Again, some big goals. Most of that damage is on the power play. 5-on-5, this team is going to have to create a little bit more of a threat as this series is going on. They held on as much as they could defensively, but that line just kind of toyed with them all night. They lost a few too many board battles, which led to a few more opportunities for Winnipeg, which ended up with the puck in the back of their net. Bennington's rebound control was a bit of an issue in this one, too. There was a lot of big rebound chances that let the Jets keep up some zone time, especially early in this game, and start to establish a bit of a rhythm for themselves offensively. And that I think is a bit of a concern for the Blues. But we have seen recently in big moments that Bennington can, find his sea legs after a rough game or two. You just saw the graphic if you're watching, but it would really help me out if you could share a link to this stream, whether it is Twitch, Kick, or where you're watching on YouTube. I would really appreciate it if you would share the stream, or if you're watching after, share this video and help kind of build up these numbers. Really happy with the stuff that we've been doing here lately. Would just like more people to be seeing it, is all. The Colorado Avalanche put on a show with some help. Some wild bounces go their way on the first 2 goals. The first one, Lehkonen, I agree with and understand why it was allowed. I will just say, as someone who wants to, in MMA, enforce every rule ever, and hey, no more warning, no warnings. Your last warning is when we talk to you in the back, and if you kick a guy low, that's on you. I don't care if it was a mistake, it still is kicking him low. I would listen to an argument saying that the rule isn't he absolutely meant to have a distinct kicking motion. It is just a distinct kicking motion. And that's what that was. Now, it's because he's getting shit whipped to the ground and his leg happened to hit the puck. And it's from a distance away. None of it is in the spirit of the rule. It's from long enough out that you're not worried about him kicking the puck and it scratching, or the skate blade catching someone, and it becomes a traumatic event. You're not worried about that, and it is not an intentional thing at all, but it is still a kicking motion that was distinct. And so if that's the rule, I would listen to an argument that would say that should be called, but it would be ridiculous to overturn that one, ultimately, I think. But the speed and depth on display for Colorado, it felt like as that game went on, they really did own the puck a lot, and when that happens, you're going to get those breaks. And so, while a couple of the bounces go their way, the weird one off of Lehkonen, and then McKinnon just tries to shoot one through a defender, it deflects off the pants and floats in over Ottinger, those are going to happen when you have the puck more, and that's what Colorado did in this game. So I think they kind of earned their own luck there. Defensively, I do think they gave up a few too many really good looks, and Blackwood was fantastic and really, really sharp. I do think the defense is going to have to tighten up a little bit, but you love how active they are on the offensive side. Manson on that kind of 4-on-2 rush, a perfect pass, and it's Taves rushing to the front of the goal, putting it in. They just, even with a bunch of new guys in the lineup, they have this chemistry with their high-level players that really shines through at this time of year. So, an impressive performance from Colorado in Game 1, although not one without flaw. For the Dallas Stars, again, a little bit unlucky, but if you want puck luck, you need to have the puck first, and I just didn't think they had that enough. Now, they did have a few very good looks at Mackenzie Blackwood at various different times in this game, and just weren't able to kind of break it through. You do give up too much zone time, I think, and Ottinger, even though you can't really blame him on these goals, I do think he was also a little bit shaky in this game. He was not his regular sharp self. So just an overall tightening up of things for the Dallas Stars needed for this second game. Staying out west, the Vegas Golden Knights just kind of survive and advance into game number 2. This series might be a bit of a grind, and I do think that favors Vegas here. Minnesota's defense, you think of them as the trap team, the slow everything down team, and all of that. That's not this group anymore. And so I do think Vegas, having this be a bit more of a low event game, it does benefit them a little bit. They have some concerns about secondary scoring. And if this turns into a bit of a track meet, as crazy as it is when you have Eichel, I don't know if they can keep up as well if this turns into a bit more of the Minnesota style of game that they would want. And so I do think while Vegas initially was built on speed and skill, I do think kind of slowing this one down a little bit helps them out when you are trying to hope for some of that secondary scoring. And then eventually Howden breaks through with a couple of goals, albeit one, into an empty net. So Vegas able to kind of dictate the pace for themselves and come away with a victory in game one. The last one we are going to break down here today on, again, a bit of a longer stream for y'all. The Carolina Hurricanes really do put on a show against the New Jersey Devils. You force Markstrom to step up, make 44 saves. You still put 4 in past him. Stankoven with a couple. If you're getting the secondary scoring like that, this series is going to be over pretty quickly. And so this was Carolina really reminding people that they are a really good hockey team and putting it all together here. The Devils, being a shorthanded group, really did show. But Carolina, this was a statement that this is a team that is being overlooked right now in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So it is a busy schedule tonight when you are looking at the National Hockey League. I kind of like how they do it a little bit more than the NBA, where everything's a little bit more spaced out. It is a bit trickier to follow when it's 4 games a night, but Montreal and Washington get the thing going tonight in game 1. The Jets look to take a 2-0 lead on the Blues in game 2. Same thing goes for Colorado. Man, huge game for Dallas on home ice. They need that one against the Avs coming up at 7:30 Mountain Time tonight. And then Edmonton and LA start their series at 8. So that is going to do it for Couch Potato Diary today. Again, thank you all so much for hanging out. We're always presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for that Calgary swag. Maybe some new stuff coming soon. So keep it locked on all of our socials for that as well. But there's a sale going on right now. If you love this Cannons hat, we got some Stampede Wrestling stuff and a lot of great Calgary swag. Even the sweater. A lot of times it's back there. I feel like you don't really get the true sense of the color on this. This is comfy as heck. And we're still a little bit in sweater weather in Calgary. So not a bad time to pick this one up as well. As far as the streams go for the rest of the week, coming up on Tuesday, we are going to be back 10 a.m. Mountain Time here on youtube.com/@CouchPotatoDiary, kick.com/PrimeTimePK, and twitch.tv/PrimeTimePK. Gonna be back here with, again, a recap of Raw, getting ready for NXT as well, plus a little bit more from the playoffs that we will see tonight in both hockey and in basketball, and we'll start to ramp up the coverage as we get close to the NFL draft. So it's all very busy. Follow me on social media at PrimetimeKlein, wherever you are socially on media. If you were watching this, you can get it in podcast form wherever you get your podcast. Just search Couch Potato Diary. We got a lot of links in the descriptions and all of that. And if you're listening and you want to catch this one early, you can get it live on all the different spots that we saw. But if you just want to focus on one sport, we have that. We've broken up everything now into the playlists on the Couch Potato Diary YouTube channel. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. Missed going live with y'all, so I was happy to do it here on a Monday. We'll be back tomorrow with a couple of streams, with the first one at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.